Hello everyone, it's March the 11th and today I have a special treat for you. I thought it was just about the right time now to share this. I have not shared that yet publicly aside from my Facebook page in March 2020. So I won't use certain words just to be on the safe side. However, you can read the title of this chart and you probably see where we are going here. This was this infamous full moon of March the 9th in the year 2020, which is just about 3 years ago. How much has the world, how much has each of our lives changed in these last 3 years? Just hold on for a moment and think back. It's just incredible. Anyway, as soon as I saw this chart in a few weeks prior, naturally, to this date in February or so of that year, I said, this is a crazy chart. This is a total it shows like a great deceit is manifesting here, a great scam, something nobody really was able to recognize aside from a few, and naturally as an astrologer that was what I saw. Now this chart is an epic in many ways and it shows truly, together with its heliocentric counterpart of that same moment, which we'll be looking at too in a while, but let's start with this one. They're both epic charts, which show that this whole event was meant to happen exactly the way it happened, which makes you think of destiny and whatever you connect with that everything is already written before it happens, that we just have to still experience it, which this chart totally implies. And I give you just the most obvious things of it. I could talk hours on this chart alone. It's so powerful. Just let's focus first here on the Black Moon and Chiron and Salacia. The Black Moon, yes, is the shadow point, difficulties, whatever kind of dark fate and bottlenecks we have to pass through in life, being thrown onto the shadow, literally, finding the light at the center of darkness, all that, and Chiron, the wounded healer, which is all about opening the wound and letting it be exposed to the sunlight. That's literally what this means. This was the laser beam right on that whole issue of health, well-being, healing and suffering, which is part of the journey, as it, strangely enough, it brings us back into the body, it brings us back into the present when there's a challenge, a difficulty, and all that here with Salacia, which really took off the edge. And if we were able to look at it, if we had the circumstances, naturally not everybody was in that good position, but overall there was this ability to transcend it and to see the good in it and to just take it as what it was in a very zen way. As I often say, Salacia has this frequency of enjoying everything, whatever it brings along. And then naturally this powerful trio here is squaring the lunar nodes, which always is kind of showing the direction of evolution, that meeting point of where we come from and where we are going to here. Yes, and in the 7th house naturally. Now let's just start with the Virgo moon, which is all about health, well-being, Virgo in general. Here the full moon in Virgo, exactly opposed by Neptune. Interesting though is that this full moon axis was separating from Neptune. That was kind of probably one of the saving graces of this chart, that yes, we already at the very beginning were working towards getting away from it again, even though it definitely got quite exaggerated towards the end of the year and last year, the whole theme. Interesting certainly is that we came out of this Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which definitely gave the most basic note of that year 2020, which in many ways is the combination of energies which speaks for war, for deep conflict. It's the clash of the titans, as I also like to name it. The Lord of the Underworld and the Guardian of the Threshold. And these are two powerful characters, and when they come together, then we are between a rock and a hard place. In hexagram 61, which I really want to emphasize, gave the background of how this would play out in Capricorn. 61 is inner truth, it's a spiritual war. We have been pushed into head over heels pretty much in these beginning months of that year 2020. And then there's, interestingly enough, here this Venus Uranus conjunction again, which kind of took the edge off a bit, as there was also something thrilling in the whole experience of something new, something we never had experienced. The whole having to stay home and having in isolation, the whole world shifted around. With Venus in Taurus, yes, there was that backdoor of enjoying nature, of seeing really the positive sides of all of that. All of a sudden you could see the mountains again in areas which were very polluted. People enjoyed the quiet. Then Hygeia is interesting here, which is naturally the asteroid representing health, well-being. One to look at for sure. In a wide conjunction, yes, with Sedna and Vesta being the focal point of what is kind of a dedication, and then wanting to do the best out of it, can also be quite radical in its approach, kind of what's the word here? A fanatic. A fanatic, that is definitely one way of expression. And I guess this has shown here with that set now again, this energy of being separated and isolated, experiencing all that dark frequency Sedna has at the very surface, as it's kind of at its entry level, if you want. And we certainly have worked our way through this principle and have arrived at the more way more rich and rewarding frequency of this symbol, and this has been the case with so many of these more difficult energies. The same thing with Nessus, and I will speak more about Nessus in a minute. Nessus is important. Nessus is about all kinds of dark experiences too, illness and being stained. And on the other side then, if we are able to work through all those dark energies and transmute them, and that's what Orcus really is all about. Orcus is about transmutation and alchemy. Interesting that they are here in this opposition in these years 2018 to 2020. They had several oppositions and are still within range. So this is the greater theme of transmuting this darkness, corruption, and naturally the only way to transmute to transmute anything is to having first to look at it and shine light onto it from all sides. So this whole world situation, and I mean with the full moon exactly in the Greenwich global horizon, where the sun rises and where the sun sets, it was exactly at sunset, that full moon. And this in itself, that a full moon, a lunation, is dead on in one of these four major corners of the world chart, always shows this is a super special time. We're getting into whatever the fine print is in this situation. So I looked up a couple more smaller asteroids, actually. Damocles, Pandora, and Hephaestus, most so because these seem to be super important right now in our present time. I speak about that in a minute. So Damocles is or Damocles, however you pronounce it, is the one with the sword hanging over its head. It's a very stressful energy, but it is something which is experienced if we go to extreme places. And Damocles was conjunct Mercury at 2715 here in this chart. So which showed that there was this overhead sword hanging on a hair, literally. That's the image. It can fall any time. Very, very dangerous place to be in a way. And then there's Pandora. I guess we all are aware of Pandora's box, and Pandora was at the time at 19 degrees 32 minutes here in Gemini, in a close conjunction with Aspolus. Aspolus being the Sherlock Holmes energy, but also that whole theme of criminal activity being investigated. There's a really dark and morbid twist to the energy of Aspolus, even though Aspolus has one of the most harmonious relations between its farthest distance from Earth and its closest distance, I should say the Sun. which is the golden means, in other words, I guess the outcome of whatever the investigations are, Ospolus puts its energy into, is to bring more harmony and to see through the patterns. So, I mean, the whole thing was a setup, seemingly, which showed that yes, Pandora's box was opened, all the dark things which were, as the story goes, it was Prometheus who brought the fire to humanity, and then the gods were really not happy about that. They wanted to keep people in darkness, literally. And fire naturally stands for more than just a literal fire. It's also the light and the clarity, the understanding of context and such. So anyway, the story is that kind of as an answer to bringing the light to humans, they sent out Pandora and gave her this jar where each god put in one evil whatever plague which would be then haunting humanity, so that they definitely were not able to reach to the godly status too fast and too soon. And I've put a few barriers and hindrances and hurdles in between. That's what this whole answer was to bringing the light to humans. Very interesting story. So here is this setup. Ospolus and Pandora here high in the chart, T-squaring Sun and Moon. So let's look at the geocentric chart. I know there's more in this one, we could stay longer, but let me just focus here now on the background energy of that situation, of that, in, I would say, fateful day. For sure it was in March 3 years ago. So what stands out here is, if you look here at the aspectarian, this grand square, and I calculated it, you have here the two planets, Pluto and Saturn. Saturn, yes, is moving away from Pluto. As I said, it was January 10, 12, when they had their heliocentric and geocentric meeting within 2 days, actually. The Sun was there too at the time. That's why the 2 dates were so close. So it was a Sun, Pluto, Saturn conjunction, which really made this theme even stronger. It was very clearly indicating this would be a central theme, not just for the year, but for a much longer period, as it takes, I guess, 38 years or so for Saturn to catch up to Pluto again next time. So this is a long cycle which is initiated. And we're just about now at the point where Saturn is 30 degrees away from Pluto. Pluto right now is here very close to entering Aquarius, naturally, on the 23rd of March, as we all know. And Saturn just entered Pisces. So now they have a distance where they start having enough distance between themselves to be recognized as separate frequencies, really. It's really like the moon. It takes about 3 days for the new moon to become visible as a small sickle moon. It's that distance we need to separate, to truly see what's going on. Before that, it's all kind of a little mixed and melded together. So anyway, what I want to say, the midpoint between those two is 23 and 50 minutes in Capricorn, and that is dead on the square point to Aries. Aries being the one which is in square to the two that whole year, and I mean they both move very slow, or all three of them. So Pluto and Aries. Aries is the one which wants clarity, wants to go to the bottom of the truth, and for that reason it is ready to start a war, literally. That's how the story goes. Aries is a female goddess, female energy, throwing in the golden apple of discord onto the table round of the gods, starting the Trojan War, as the story goes. And in this powerful square is Venus and Mercury. They become kind of the targets of this energy, to sense it and feel it and experience it. Mercury, the planet of perception, in that sense, all our senses, that's Mercury taken together, and Venus, naturally, how we feel, how our emotional health in a way is very, very much reflected in Venus. So highly stressful on both levels. Interesting, I find also, is Mars position here at the 9th degree of Sagittarius. And if you have listened to my latest, then you know the 9th degree of Gemini here, that is where the comet and Mars both stationed. The comet just a few days ago on the 5th of March, really fully activating this Martian push for, I would say, express civil courage and take on the profile of truth, fearlessness. In many ways, this is what we see now increasingly. There's nothing to lose in this situation anymore. So it's interesting that this is actually, we can say whatever is happening from here on, it seems that whole scheme, which was started in March 2020, will become the cornerstone of the breakthrough. Let's put it that way. It's kind of the darkest of the realizations people are going through right now on this planet, is the aftermath, the casualties which have come out of that big scam which was played on us. I mentioned Vesta before, heliocentric here, right center stage, shows kind of that, as I said, in a more negative way, it's kind of that fanatical pursuit of an idea. In a positive way, it's commitment and focus. So yes, I just thought I wanted to show you this chart. I could say many more things. I guess this is really the most outstanding features. A very charged, energetic picture here heliocentrically. Maybe Mars also pointing out here in this configuration here, actually tying into this big square here at the midpoint of Mercury and Saturn. And so that Sagittarius energy of Mars is militaristic in a way. This kind of that whole kind of radical approach which was pushed through, and everybody had to abide by these rules and regulations. Yes, that's the one I still wanted to shed some light on. Maki here, in opposition to Chiron. And if we go back to the geocentric chart, then you see Maki is here too, in this grand cross here with the nodes. Maki, that's great courage in a nutshell, and it's the courage we are which comes from our spiritual longing of having a connection with a higher dimension. That is the motivation of doing the right thing. It's kind of comes from a deep sense of wanting to be in alignment with truth. And again here being locked into this evolutionary grand square with the black moon here at its apex and Chiron. In many ways this is the energy which helped us to navigate through the whole thing and keep our good spirits, to not give in. Just today I learned the news that according to the latest numbers from the WHO, only 70% have been really subjected to one or more of these injections. So they truly missed their targets. Everything really failed in the end, as we see now with everything breaking open, now with Saturn having entered Pisces. So I found this was an appropriate moment to speak a little bit about that, and let's leave it at this. Thank you for joining and listening, and see you next time.